Hello, everybody, and welcome to Amber Jean's Yoga World. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you for joining today. I'm actually going live at a different time today. And today's topic is yoga and money. Also, because I'm just getting these lives going, you'll notice that I'm experimenting with a lot of different lighting, a lot of different backgrounds. And this is all part of the process of when you start something new, is that there's an experimental aspect to it. And really, this is everything is going to go back to yoga and money, the topic today. But basically, what we're doing with yoga and our practice and our teaching is we're putting ourselves out there, we're working on poses, but we are letting go of the end result. Okay. And so this is an example of that. By doing these lives right now, I don't know if they're going to be successful or not successful, but I'm feeling a calling to do these. And we're also live on our YouTube channel, and I'm starting to shift focuses from Rocket Yoga Academy to Amber Jean's Yoga World. Okay. So this is my little world that I've created for myself to be able to offer these teachings to you. And if you like the teachings, then you might want to come to Ohio and or study with me more online. So in the very beginnings of yoga was designed to be a service, a selfless service. And in the beginnings of yoga, you studied with a teacher and you kept studying with them and studying with them. And eventually you would be granted into being able to teach. So in our lineage with Krishnamacharya, Patabi Joyce was in India, and these are some of the older stories. Patabi Joyce was in India and he was very poor. He didn't have any money. And he was so poor that he was stealing food from a market just to be able to eat. And Krishnamacharya found Patabi Joyce and said, I don't want you stealing food anymore. And if you let me teach you, I will feed you. So it was actually Krishnamacharya was giving his student not only the teachings, but he was also giving his student nourishment through food. And so those are the very humble beginnings of Ashtanga yoga. And I feel that it's very important for any new yoga instructors or even existing yoga instructors to remember those humble beginnings. Okay? And it was later on when Patabi Joyce started traveling and yoga started spreading that money became involved with yoga. Okay. This is a very modern concept, is that there is a money exchange or a trade. There can be a trade, but actually we're talking about money today, a money exchange to your yoga instructor. And so a lot of newer teachers don't know what they're going to get paid. Okay. They may want to take a yoga teacher training and gain that experience, but then they don't know what to charge and they don't know what the going rate is. So there's lots of ways to think about money and yoga. And ultimately, if you really believe in yourself and in your teaching, the greater teachings say that yoga will take care of you. And so, one of the most important things for a yoga instructor is to have this deep core belief that that we live in abundance. Okay, so not just having money, you can, you know, find a dollar in a drawer and you have money. But we want to look at ourselves as yoga instructors having a very luxurious lifestyle, okay, and living in abundance. So when you first start to get yourself out there, okay, and you start to teach, you want to get as much experience as possible. So in the begin and this is going to play out in your whole yoga career. I've been instructing for 26 years. It'll be 26 years this May. Wow, that's coming up. And in my yoga journey, you have to keep giving over and over and over again. It doesn't stop. So when you first start teaching, you want to take as whatever job you can get, because when you do that, you're going to be opening up doors for you to meet people, to network, and then you might get private clients from taking the lower paying jobs. And so, a lot of things that I talk about on my live and YouTube are topics that other yoga instructors don't want to talk about because, well, we don't know why. We don't know why. But these are the topics that I'm being called to talk about. And working at a gym is going to be one of your lowest price points to get paid for yoga. Okay. They're used to paying fitness instructors and they pay very low, sometimes hourly. So you have to negotiate higher. Okay. And you also have to learn how to talk to people. And this is something that Larry would talk to us about, is sometimes people will pay more for their grass to get mowed than they will for a private yoga instructor to come to their house. So money being the currency, is we're also talking about energetic currency, our energy. And if you're a yoga instructor and you're driving all around town and you're teaching tons and tons of classes, it's going to be very taxing on you. Okay. And so you really have to weigh everything out of what is going to work for you. And, you know, choosing the path to become a yoga instructor, it's it's not for it's not really for it's for a very special type of person. And especially if you want to pursue it full time, because you're constantly going to be tested and you're constantly going to have to figure out new ways to think about things. And that's really all the yoga off the mat is getting out of our heads, out of the box, and really being able to manifest the life that we dream of living. Okay? And it takes a lot of dedication, but thinking about things differently. So for example, when you're teaching and maybe things are slower and you don't want to have to get another job, maybe you'll think about, how can I simplify my life? And if you can simplify your life and lower your expenses, you don't have to be making as much. And I feel that it can be very humbling experience to live that way, but it's also very fulfilling because when you are a yoga instructor, it's going to keep feeding you positive energy. Okay, it's like you're going to this Buddha temple every time you teach. And that is called the Shaktipada. And the Shaktipada is the energy exchange that's exchanged between student and teacher. And so this is the energy currency that we're talking about is, how can you instruct and feel the reward of instructing and feel good after you teach instead of feeling drained? And that's comes with a lot of practice and preparation and knowing yourself and knowing your schedule and really listening to that schedule and not just listening to it, but if you want to take your teaching and be professional, you have to plan your day around your classes. And so that means, you might not be taking a heavy meal in 2 hours before you teach. Okay, might mean you're waiting till later in the day. So when you are teaching, you need to replenish yourself. And this is some of that rocket girl energy that I'm talking about is the juicing. Okay, the the more natural lifestyle, connecting to nature, practicing your pranayamas, practicing your yoga nidras, practicing your restorative yoga. Because otherwise you're gonna become depleted and you're gonna become exhausted. And even for me, as long as I've been teaching, I really only like to instruct 3 hours back to back, and then I need a break. I know my limitations. And then sometimes I can take a short break and go for 2 to 3 more. Uh, but it is very intense if you're taking on bigger teacher trainings and you're teaching them all by yourself. That's a lot of teaching. So as yoga instructors, we have to be creative with how we are exchanging or coming up with new ways to make money instructing yoga. And so one of the ways is workshops, and one of the ways is offering yoga teacher training. And so this is where the teachings are going. So if you are a yoga instructor and you want to start offering yoga teacher training, I'm going to be offering those programs so that you can so that you can train to teach to teach teachers. Okay. And this is one way that you can increase your income being a yoga instructor. And a big problem with yoga and money is that it's all over the board. Okay. Some yoga teachers never make any money, and some yoga teachers, like Sharat, if you want to go to the high echelon, he was given his own island, okay, by a billionaire practitioner. So there are those things that can happen once you really start teaching a. Well, you just never know who you're going to meet instructing yoga. Okay. And so you see a diverse level of money that you can or do not make. But I recommend to anybody just to focus on simplifying your life. And if maybe you aren't making a lot of money on paper, maybe there's other benefits that you could get so that you could continue to be a full time yoga instructor and build up your clientele by getting other benefits while you're building up your teaching. So today's talk is yoga and money, and I'm going to be saving these on my channels, and so you can go back to the beginning. And again, in the Bhagavad Gita and in the sutras, is that this is a selfless job. We're giving, and we are expecting. We don't know what the end result will be. So it's really about staying connected to the life that you love and having faith in the things that we don't see. And that goes back to the Larry Schultz rocket philosophy, okay? Is having faith. And that is the yoga. That is the it's yoga. And I've seen a lot. I've seen yoga in its heyday at Larry Schultz's studio, where he could offer 90-day, $90 packages. And you can't really make a living on doing that anymore. And actually, the price of yoga, if you're going to studios, is increasing. Um, And, if you are setting up your own classes, you want to think about setting up class packages. You want to think about setting up, if you're working with privates, setting up a system where they can pay you in advance for an allotted amount of classes. And if you set these things up that in advance, that gives them a motivation to stay with the yoga private if they're paying for all those yoga privates up front. And so you have to keep thinking about this very creatively. And I would say I'm a very unique yoga instructor because I raised my two children as a single mom on yoga money. I offered a lot of teacher training. It motivated me to write a lot of teacher training manuals. I never had a wealthy husband at home to pay the home expenses so that I could pursue my dream. And that's the story that I see. And I'm just going to say it, is that a lot of bigger studios that are run by women have some type of financial backing, either from a husband, or you could always go down and take out loans. And if you really are like a bigger thinker, like I like my simplicity right now, where I can just kind of be in charge of my schedule, my studio, and I don't have to consult anybody. And that's just where I am in my yoga career currently, because that allows me to do everything faster than having to consult other people. But if you did want to work with a whole bunch of different yoga teachers, which I did for 15 years, I had a small little army of yoga instructors, and that could come back. This is just the present moment. This is just like what's happening now. Is that uh, the you could get a whole bunch of donors to donate, and or not donate, invest. You can get investors to invest, and you could set up a larger studio. But you really need a good formula of something that's going to work. And that's really kind of where my Emerson's Vinyasa program would be good to take and implement, because you're going to need to y- yoga is, in my opinion, just in my opinion, become too cookie cutter. And there's a lot of people teaching, and they're wondering why things aren't working, why the studio is slow. There's people teaching that don't know Sanskrit, and they don't know basic, even Virabhadrasana, saying Virabhadrasana, which is warrior A, Virabhadrasana B. And there's a formula to getting things going, okay? And ultimately, yoga and money is about forming different relationships with people, and figuring out what kind of relationships and energy exchanges that you can have with people to make your business work, or to help you with other things, so that you can focus on your teaching. What else about yoga and money? Yoga and money. Were they ever meant to marry each other? Well, they have. And that's really where you see, and this has also caused a lot of problems. Imagine that. Imagine yoga and money causing problems. Because there's a lot of people that realize that they could cash in, and make some big money on teacher trainings, but the teacher trainings aren't producing quality yoga instructors. So there's a whole bunch of people out there that really don't know what they're doing. And that's because of yoga and money. Okay. Uh, the most rewarding part of instructing yoga is just how good you get to make people feel. And as far as like career choices, it's not the easiest path for everybody. Some people have a natural affinity to putting themselves out there with social media and marketing, and maybe have financial backers that can help their pages look really good. But there's a lot of things that you can do, more grassroots style. Okay. And so this is a little bit more of what I bring to the table. I actually opened my studio, Yoga Ah, and this was in the year 2007 or 2008. I opened Yoga Ah with $3,000. Okay. And, you have to think about and you have to figure out how to do things um, without spending a lot of money. And, uh, the West and in the United States, we've complicated yoga. Yoga could be very simple. All you need is a room, and you can set up a yoga studio. Yeah, and then depending on how boutique that you want to get. Larry had a beautiful studio, and he had a should I say boutique or bougie? Let's say bougie. Let's get really bougie. Yeah, let's get really bougie. If you want to get really bougie, you could, I could see what Larry did. And, he had the big fancy entryway. He was one of the first people to offer that experience with a big Ganesh that was as big as me, laying on its belly, blessing the studio. He had showers, he had a refrigerator, he had a couple loft spaces in the downstairs space where people could stay. But he also had a high demand because there wasn't any other yoga. So that type of business model worked well for him. Okay. So there's lots of ways to think about things, and there's lots of ways to be creative with how you're connected to money and yoga. And, I want to inspire you all. Again, I was just saying, I raised my kids as a single mom. I was with my partner for 7, 8 years. But then when I became a single mom, I had a studio to run. So I was raising two kids and running a studio and running teacher training programs, and writing rocket yoga teacher training programs, and keeping up my own practice and doing all that. And I made it work. So if you really want to make it work, you're going to be able to, okay? Somehow, some way you make it work. And, and that's what Larry would often talk about, is how our what appears to be weaknesses becomes our strengths. And all of those times that, you've had struggle, you've had hard times, in a way, what it does is it gives you drive, okay? And so it's through having this drive that you can create more, okay? So there we go. Another little live. And so right now I'm offering these lives for free, but in the comments, if you want to donate to myself and my studio, and if you want to take a training, that's in the comments as well. And I just want to wish everybody many blessings today, and whatever you're going through, stay positive. The great wheel keeps turning, turning, turning. All right, so here we are. Peace and love, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.